we'll give a minute or two. Welcome, final basketball podcast of the season.
Yep.
Um,
And our give and go end of the season awards.
yes. Why? Like we're live, right? Where
Yeah.
is? Oh, there it is. Didn't pop up. Just that way, I got the screen up.
Okay.
Oh, two people are in. I guess that other one's me too.
Me and you. That's all right. We'll do it live and we'll get 400, 500 views in the first 2 hours. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. All right. We'll just get started. People will join in, and a lot of people watch after the fact too. So we want to recap the state. Me and Doug haven't been able to get on here since the state finals took place. First, congratulations, RBC. Really a dominant effort. Doug, I wasn't at the semifinal game. I wasn't at the finals either.
Yeah.
But maybe if you want to just touch a little bit about the SJV, the semifinal, the sectional final, the SJV RBC game before you could talk about the Morris Catholic RBC game.
Yeah. Just another great game between the two teams. But, like RBC did 3 out of 4 times they played this year, took over in the second half. Addie had a great second half. And Daniela Molesky's defense on Maddie Kosis really kept the SJV offense at bay. And then at the end, SJV just kind of took over and kind of not the first 2 games were pretty close. Third game's pretty close, but this one I think was the biggest margin of victory for RBC. And credit. They played 4 times. We figured before the season they play 4 times. They played 4 times. RBC got the best of them 3 times. And in any other bracket, if SJV was in any other bracket, they would have met in the finals. But that's not how it works. And so congratulations again to RBC. Then in the finals against Morris Catholic, it was close for a little while, but RBC was definitely the better team. Again, we would have liked to see SJV RBC in the final, but it doesn't work that way. But credit to RBC. They started number 1. They had a couple, the bump during the season against SJV, but to come out and finish the season number 1 is a pretty incredible feat to start and finish the season number 1.
Yeah, and what a way to go out. Those that senior class, Coach Montana again is 800 win in the final game of their senior year. Addie's the all-time scoring record for RBC in that final game. It's nice, they were able to get Katie Liggio out there, even though, with the knee injury. It was a nice job by Joe, at least getting her out there for, whatever it was, 40 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, and Joe always talks to us, when we talk to him after games, that everybody anointed this class the best, even though he had a team finish undefeated and, win a state championship and but I think really now, if he's being honest, he has to put this team up there with his other state championship teams, because these 5 kids came in with all the ballyhoo and the hoopla, and they lived up to every bit of it.
Yeah, they and it was nice, me and you, front row seat watching them grow from, when they stepped on the court that first year in the WOVM, and they went from that half court offense to the running gun. We were like, "Wow, what's this?" And all of them have grown into their own individual players. And it was one of almost probably a perfect team. Everybody had their role. Everybody played their role, and they closed out with a great final season. And a lot of awards at the end of the season, and well deserved to those players.
Yep.
Second game when coaches, she was battling the flu or whatever was going around her, and Lola were both sick that week. And she just came. First of all, she didn't give up that game. She fought through
Right.
it until I think she fell out that game, if I remember correctly. Then she had a very good short conference final, and like you said in the sectional final, she really did a good job on coaches. She just one of those competitors that is just there to get the W's, doesn't care.
Yeah, definitely. And the kind of kid I know I've mentioned it that is committed to Army West Point. Um, but that's the kind of kid that you want playing at West Point, a kid that's team first, not me. I mean, that's the military. You got to be a team player. You can't be a me first player. You can't worry about accolades. You got to go out there and do the job that's assigned to you, and she does every game. Um, and in the final, she played offensively great. She doesn't always is not always counted on the offensive end, but some games it was her, some games it was Sophie Smith. When the offense wasn't clicking, they were hitting shots and allowed the team to get back into the flow and you know let the Ligios and Addy and start getting into their game. So again, an all around team effort by that team. Any day, it could have been any player on that team that led them in scoring, but they happen to have the best player in the state and one of the best players in the country. That's what happens.
Yeah, and Addie finishing off, going to Indiana. We'll talk more about her later on, but yeah, it was a real, pleasure. Now, got to think what's next for RBC. The rumors with all the transfers. A couple freshmen probably coming in, so they'll be fine. Going forward, just it'll be a new look RBC, and it's going to be a new look SJV too. They graduated a strong senior class.
Yeah.
There's no rebuilds there. There's reloads.
And if we have to be honest, I think SJV is in a little better position right now with for next year. They played a lot
Yeah.
more players that are coming back, two starters that are coming back. Um, it's going to be less of a transition for them than RBC next year.
They graduated a lot of points, but yeah, very point guard, returning, and Tatum Sharp, started every game this season. So they're just going to need to find those people and programs like the RBC, SJV, Manasquan. They get the players that step in, no problem. And I guess we could transition to Manasquan next, third straight Group Two title. I think the 12th overall. I do believe it's Coach Kokoda's eighth out of 12. I think she has. Just we said it last year. We thought they were going to go through a little rebuild last year. And what did they do? Run through everyone except for the top two.
Right.
But another senior stepped up. They graduated. And we're like, oh, they're going to go through a little rebuild this year. Nope. This year was probably even more impressive because besides the top two, they won convincingly against some of the teams ranked 4, 5, 6 in the short conference. So another Group Two title. We were at the semifinal game, a lot closer than they're used to playing in that game, and I think that just set up for the blowout that we saw in the championship game. It got them a little more prepared. Still slow start those first 3-4 minutes, but then Looney took over, and Hollowell didn't have the points, but she put on a show with her assists and doing everything right. That backdoor cut in the semifinal. Her and Looney they had so much chemistry at the end of the season. It was hard for teams to guard.
Yeah. I think the semifinal game and the final game, Hollowell came close to a triple double both
Yes.
games. And that game down in Lenape was tight. It was tight. It wasn't well officiated. I think everybody in the gym saw it. Talking to a couple officials after the game, officials that weren't involved in that game said that it was poorly officiated. So it wasn't just us this time. There were officials said that game was poorly officiated, and I think I've said this for a long time, but um, I think refs that don't officiate short conference teams get overwhelmed. The way that short conference teams, the pace of play, the physicality, if you're not used to that, you can't keep up, and you're blowing the whistle too many times. Uh, so it's tough when you get non-shore officials reffing short conference teams. We saw it a little bit in the final game, the RBC Morris Catholic game. Um, those officials aren't used to the pace of play in the short conference, and um, but we also said at the end of the game, get the worst one out of the way, get ready for the final. And I think that Coach Kokoda probably read them the riot act and the practices leading up to the final that, hey, you could lose. This isn't a foregone conclusion. And the way they came out, Shannon Looney had 10 of the first 12 points or something for Manasquan, and it just led to a blowout from there. But Calissa Vateris, who didn't have a great semifinal game, had a great final game. Um, it just seemed like everybody, again, Manasquan, everybody on that team did their job like they've done all year. If you weren't counted on for scoring, you were counted on for defense. If you weren't counted on for defense, you counted on for rebounds. So everybody that came in that game did their job, and it just led to another state championship.
Yeah, Looney, it's the seniors. You had Looney and McCarthy
Mm-hmm.
and Hollowell. All three of them had great games. McCarthy did it all season. Come off the bench, Lisa needed energy. She got McCarthy. Whatever game it might have been. Go give her some energy. I think she finished. I think she had 8 assists actually in that game. The final stat line, 3 offensive rebounds, and that's what she did all year. And not
Yeah,
even basketball's not even her primary sport.
right.
Um, I know we're going to talk about Looney a little more down the road in this podcast, but she came in as a sophomore, learned the system like it's expected at Manasquan. You might not get on your court the first 2 years there, but you're patient. Everybody knows their role, and Lisa, that's a team. It's a team. It's no me. It's a team there, and another great coaching job by Coach Bakota this year.
Yeah, you have to check your ego at the door when you come in as a freshman. No matter what the expectations or the accolades you get, it doesn't matter. You might not play a minute. You might play 2 minutes. You might play a lot, but you never know until you get there. But it doesn't stop kids from going there because they know they're going to win.
And Valteris, a great final game quietly. Like all of a sudden, she had 19 points. Her and
Yeah.
Looney led to 19. And they're probably in a better position next year with you got Paige Donnelly, Rose Latessa, a couple Dwyer girl coming off the bench, Rampone defense off the bench. They're probably in a better shape coming in next season than they were this season. And we keep hearing about the seventh grade class that they're getting. So Manasquan, like, they're in a good spot for the future for the next few years, definitely. And with Coach Kokoda there, I expect more state titles. Who knows with the new rule if they move up to Group 3? I don't know what that looks like, but and then transition to the next team. We could see a sectional final possibly next year of Manasquan and Colts Neck with Colts Neck, everybody coming back. They were one of the last teams left in the Shore Conference, made it to the Group 3 semifinal. A great game, fun. We were there, very fun game. Morristown kind of opened it up twice. They went up 15 at one point,
Mm-hmm.
14. And then right to start the second half, they went up 10 again. And, Allie McAndrew, I think it was 13 straight points from the second quarter into the third quarter she had. And, fourth quarter went back and forth, and they just couldn't close it out.
Yeah, and McAndrew was hitting threes. I mean, stuff that we weren't expecting to see in that game. She put the team on her shoulders and kind of willed them all the way to the finish line. But um, the shot by Donahue looked like it was 3/4 of the way down and bounced out. Um, Tough ending for them, but again, they all come back. Great team, great season by them. Um, they just ran into a powerhouse Morristown team who has one of the better players in the state, and um, it was a tough draw. And it, again, I'm not blaming officials or anything, but um, again, one
It was
official
weird.
from the Shore Conference. It didn't seem like they were very cohesive, the three officials. One guy let them play, and the other two were calling a lot of fouls
Take
that the other guy wasn't calling. Uh, some of the refs are calling fouls out of position because they weren't comfortable with somebody not calling something closer to the action. So yeah, it's just I think the state has to find a better way to um, come up with who refs these games. And I spoke to somebody, an official, and I'm not going to say who it was, but um, he basically said that the state doesn't pick these people based on merit, you know, uh, which is a shame. You think you'd want the best officials. The NCAA does it. They grade officials out through the NCAA tournament, and the three best end up refing the final. I mean, I would think you'd want the best officials refing the best games, but it doesn't always end up that way.
Yeah, it felt like Colts Neck was getting a little, it wasn't a poorly ref game. It just seemed like fouls Colts Neck was getting called for. Morristown wasn't getting called for because of which ref was in which position. There was a few times Colts Neck got hacked going up to the basket. The foul wasn't called, and because that official was, letting them play. But then when Morristown would go, to the basket, a little brush up, was getting called. But needless to say, you Colts Neck, you also can't let that team get that big of a lead, and
Right. Yeah.
that team
Yeah.
did a
That's
lot of favors with two of their shooters chucking threes up, and they couldn't find the beach with a beach ball that game.
right.
They kind of kept Colts Neck in. If they played a little smarter, who knows if Colts Neck could even get back into that game if Morristown played a little smarter with their shot selection. But that play, what was the girls Intenzo?
Intenso. Yeah.
What what a pleasure getting to watch her play. She really take Addie out, one of the best players I've seen this season. Just did it all for that team, and glad I got to see her play before. I think she's going to FDU. I think next year.
Yep. Yep.
So that's one thing good about states. You can see, especially when you get that far, you get to see some talented players you don't get to see during the season. So same thing when I was at the Roselle Park Keensburg game. They had a really talented player that, and Cinnaminson against Manasquan.
Yep. Very good player. I got to see Anita Samuel. Yeah, I'm going to butcher her name. Elenita Joe Samuel from Lenape. Um, but yeah, it is always good because, you know, not being biased or anything, but we do have the best talent in the Shore Conference
Mhm,
overall. But then you do find these kids that are
better.
excellent players, and you know, get to see them play in the states, and I'll die in the Hill, New Jersey as probably the top girls basketball talent in the country. I know that DMV down in DC has the Catholic League, and a lot of great players have come out of there, but I really think New Jersey's tops when it comes to girls basketball.
Yeah, depth. A lot of depth in Jersey. So, all right, let's transition. We're gonna roll out our final top 10. If you didn't see it on the website,
Well, this
obviously
is this is this is uh,
our
this is Give and Go podcast, awards, not the other company. So we're we'll keep that separate.
yeah SJV 1-2. No, just the way it started. Nobody. It's the way we expected it all season. Only a little, like you brought up, a little hiccup in the middle of the season. They lost it for a couple weeks, but they regained it after winning their back-to-back short conference title. A lot of rebuilding for next year, but we'll see what the offseason brings for RBC. SJV, finished second. A lot of people, and as they do almost every season, consider the non-public South Jersey final the state final game for most years. I'm not saying every year.
Right, right,
Most that is considered the state final. Finished second. A lot, they graduated a lot of points, but they do bring back a couple players that did see good minutes. 3, Manasquan. Really, I think from week 2, we're up there at number 3. I think they started 6 or 7 and quickly went up the ranks.
Mhm.
The Trinity Hall game early in the year at Manasquan that got them to the up to the 3 spot, and they didn't look back. The only short conference losses were to RBC and
RBC and
SJV.
SUV, yeah.
That's a pretty good season. For Rumson, started off really strong. Uh, a lot of it is their division. Finished 19-11, but you're playing in that division. They beat Red Bank Regional twice. They split with St. Rose to get 3 division wins. Um, but Coach Cal, he every year he schedules one of the hardest schedules. He doesn't care who what team he has. He always has his team ready. They made the run to the finals. Um, that was an ugly game. Officiating, playing. They didn't hit their first basket until 28 seconds left in the first
Right.
half. So, but they do have to replace their best player, Aaron Reed. But he worked in a lot of sophomores, a couple freshmen this year. Chloe Kelly, Grace Smith will be back as their leaders. So
Mhm.
they're in pretty good shape next year. They're just gonna have to replace stuff. I mean, the heart. The heart won't be hard to replace because Chloe Kelly plays with a lot of heart. But they are gonna have to get a consistent scorer because if they needed a basket, Aaron Reed got
It
them
was,
the
yes.
basket all season. But
Yeah,
but I think they were in pretty good shape next season with the amount of playing time the youngsters got this year.
I agree.
5, Colts Neck. Uh, Probably would have finished 4 if they got to the Group 3 final. I think. Um, Lost 2 games to Rumson this year. The short conference, and both of them were very close. The first game was by 3. I think the short conference was 4. Um, Made it to the Group 3 semifinal. Only one senior, 2 juniors that played a lot, so they'll be the leaders next year, and that strong class will be juniors. And that next year's the year. No
And
no no
yeah,
no excuses.
they're going to throw their name in the ring for top preseason number one next year. You know, definitely top two, top three with everybody coming back and the experience they got this year.
Yeah, I agree. 6, Howell. Kind of shocked some people with the first Trinity Hall win, but then they did it again during the regular season and beat them by even more. Every year they seem to graduate a couple players, and every year they get a couple other players that step up, especially on the defensive end. They bring back Kylie Beam, back to back all shore appearances. Great player, rebounder. But they're going to lose a little bit on defense with Marino graduating.
Definitely. But again, Coach Santapietro will probably have some kids ready to go. He's always there. Again, they could have beaten Lenape. They had their opportunities to beat Lenape, who ended up winning the state championship. So, but when you bring Kylie Bean back, that's always a good thing.
Yeah, that game, no offense, but thought that game was going to be a little lopsided. But Marino did her job against Lenape's best player, and actions after the game show the frustration that Marino could
Yep,
be
no
defensive.
doubt.
7, Trinity Hall. Um, Senior heavy. I mean, they lose a lot. Those girls have 21 season. Ella Crail, one of the best freshmen this season. She's really the only one that was in the primary rotation. I know a couple of the other multi-sport athletes got in,
Mhm.
but they're in a rebuild. So I'd be curious next year where you see them.
Yeah, I think probably not the season they thought they would have with the senior dominated lineup. Couple tough losses. Um, it's going to be interesting. I mean, without knowing ahead of time, but losing all that talent, bringing one freshman back that was in the rotation, and knowing that a lot of other schools are bringing kids back, not starting in the top 10 could be, uh, not out of the question, I don't think, but you know, just have to see if they have a class coming in. I know they had some freshmen this year that didn't really play that much. Um, yeah, it's going to be tough replacing all those kids that are graduating.
Yeah, and who knows with the transfer portal in high school being just as wacky for girls basketball as it is in college. But yeah, they got some work to do, and like you said, I know they had some more freshmen that didn't see a lot of time with, but hopefully those freshmen learned a lot at practice going up against those seniors every day. So hopefully they'll be ready. Uh, Red Bank number 8. Um, Tough season for them, senior heavy. Playing in that division did not help. Their only win in the division was to St. Rose. They lost to St. Rose in the Shore Conference second round as well. They did get revenge on Neptune after eliminating them in the last year's Central Jersey Group
Right.
3 final. They beat them in the semifinal. Um, and they were in it close until the fourth quarter with Colts Neck in the this year's final. Just Colts Neck's defense really went to another level in the fourth quarter and held Red Bank to 4 points. Another team, Senior Habit, they got a lot of shoes to fill there because Casey Miranda was the only player
Yeah.
underclassman that saw a lot of minutes in the rotation. So, anything to add on that one?
No, you're spot on. I think they have a lot to replace, but I don't know what their middle school situation is if they have kids coming in, but it's it's a tough ask. They've had 4 good years with that class, and now they're gone. So they're going to have to rebuild and replace a lot of talent there. Mhm.
At end of the season, they still fought strong, made it to the semifinals of their sectional. Allenton, great season. Only two seniors that they had big roles, but they weren't their offensive. They were more the boards and defense.
Right.
So I think if Howard comes back, Ederson had a very good year. Getting minutes this year. I think Neptune, if Howard's healthy, top 5 maybe to start the season. What they bring back.
Yeah, I think they have to avoid injuries next year. That kind of derailed their season. They started out undefeated, what, 15-0, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yes,
Uh,
I think 12. I
but
think 12.
but
Yeah.
again, Central Jersey Group 3, they're going to have to deal with Colts Neck, who brings back everybody also. So if we
Yeah.
can get those two teams in the final next year, it'd be a great game.
Yeah. And number 10, another Group 3, Central Jersey Group 3, Brick. Started the year up and down, then went on a night, they seemed to figure it out. The injury to Stout kind of hurt them in the
Mhm.
sectional. You talked to Kevin. He felt Ewing kind of controlled the glass and had second chance points that he doesn't think would have happened with Stout in a game, and she is a very good rebounder, so I do believe him. But a lot of question marks with all the rumors floating around. But the talent is there, and if they all come back, potential there too. Another team to throw their hat in Central Jersey Group 3.
That's a big if, because if the rumors are true, what we're hearing, that cupboard might be bare pretty soon. So, um, it is what it's not official till it becomes official, of course, but you know, the rumor mills are churning that there could be a mass exodus from Brick Township. So
Yeah. Bubble teams that we saw in and out this season. Tom's River East started really, really strong this year. Big injury. Took a while to figure out how to win without Francis. Then she came back, and they went on a streak. Went down the mainland, upset the number 3 seed, and it's not easy for a short team to travel to South Jersey. You know,
no, and we complain about whistles going against short teams, but you know,
you're not getting
listen,
whistles in South
you
Jersey.
you go down to South Jersey, forget it.
Yeah, but Another team next year. Everybody back. You have them ready. St. Rose. You know they fought. Made it to the quarters of the short conference tournament. I think both of us were saying if they could avoid the top two, they can make a little noise in the quarterfinals. But unfortunately, they got seated where they belonged and got RBC, and that was one of the most ugly games we saw. I
Yeah,
saw
yeah. Plus, they got bit by the injury bug also during the season.
all.
So tough season for them. But a lot of freshmen got playing time this year. So um,
Yeah,
they'll bring back Janicki. He'll be a senior next year. And then all those freshmen that got time, if they all stay, again, you never know. But, um, you know, they'll be young. And if they stay in that division, it'll be tough. But, if they get moved around a little bit, things could look up for St. Rose.
yeah, and Coach Housefield's a very good coach. She'll have them. They were ready some of those games. I mean, during the regular season, they held RBC. They were only lost by 11 to RBC, which was one of the closer regular season games.
Mhm.
RBC. And Tom's River South is the last team. They cracked the top 10 a couple times. Won their division, beat Brick. Another young team too. They're bringing everybody back next year, so they could be fun.
And I'll throw Manchester in there also. You bring back Serrana and Nolan. Um, you only
Well,
lose one player that's was in the major rotation.
yeah,
So, Manchester could make some noise next year too.
yeah. Um, yeah, I think there'll be a few new teams.
Right. With Callow and Klatsky. Yep, definitely.
Coach Warner over there, he really, talking about the short conference semis, how much the team bought into what he was trying to do there, and that's just going to pay dividends, for future teams there. So, we talked about that whole division.
Yeah.
Jack's team, we didn't have, they won their division. They beat Tom's Reese pretty bad, but East was battling some injuries. But another senior heavy
Yeah.
team that she's gonna. I think she's happy with her eighth grade class that's gonna be coming
Right.
in. But you never know until you're actually playing high school games.
Correct.
And you brought up Manchester, but another team in that division, Point Borough, a young team
Yep.
that showed a lot of promise this year, and they're bringing. I think they only graduate two that were in the
I think
rotation,
so. Yeah.
and Collins had a great freshman year, and uh,
D'Angelo.
yeah.
Yep.
So just some teams out there that can make some noise. Southern might be another team. They're
Yeah.
bringing back
Young team also.
maybe Ocean County. I know we don't like to talk about Ocean County,
The
but they
resurgence of
got
Ocean County.
maybe like Tiny said. Hopefully they get in the gym and keep working this summer
Yeah.
and improve the basketball down there.
Yeah, I think and one of the issues is we've always talked about this. There's a lot of multi-sport athletes in Ocean County, and a lot of them don't have basketball as their number one sport. A lot of them are very good at
Yeah,
basketball, but it's not their number
yeah,
one sport.
yeah. Not shooting every day like the primary
Right?
basketball player. Um, All right, we start doing some awards.
Yeah, do it.
Let's start with Coach of the Year. Me and Doug both agreed. Um, Keensburg coach, Coach Ferrara. Keensburg, what 19 or 17 or 0 to start the season, and they lost. First loss was in the short conference tournament. He had those girls believing. They played with their heart. They left everything on the floor. We got to see them. I saw them twice. You got to see them once, and well deserved for Kingsburg. The town, the community bought it. Gabby Flansbaum brought, when I was talking to her after her last game, she brought up how, she'd go get a bagel on a Saturday morning and, random people saying, good luck. And,
That's
that's what these public schools
that's
are
what it's
all
all
about,
about, man. That's what you want as a team that has struggled over the past how many years, has individually had some decent players but not great teams. Same with everybody in that division. Um, but to crack the top 10 this year, which it's been a while since they've done that. Have 1,000 points scored. It's been a long time since they've done that. So I don't care about, people can complain about competition all they want, but Coach Ferraro had that team working, playing together, had the community galvanized in their corner, and they almost pulled off the upset on Middletown South in the short conference. They won a state game, so great season overall for Keensburg.
Yeah. And, and he said early when we had him on the podcast, you know, one player goes down, that's it. So that, they play hard. Um, Flansbaum you brought up, 1,000 point score. I think it's only his second time in the school history they had 1,000 point score. First time in boys and girls they won a
Right,
division title for
right.
basketball. So that's an accomplishment. Bettinger kind of came out of nowhere, to be a reliable third, to some point second option, behind Flansbaum. It was fun, and they appreciated all the support they got, whether it was from us or the community, and it was really good job, and well deserved by the coach, and yeah,
Listen,
it was a tough decision. A lot of good coaches, a lot of good seasons this year, but
there's a lot
yeah,
of things that Coach Ferraro has to deal with up there that a lot of other coaches don't have to deal with, and
no,
um, to keep that team going despite all the adversity. I think that's a credit to him, credit to the players, and much deserved Coach of the Year.
yeah. Um, Finalists, I'll just touch real quick. Obviously Coach Kokoda, who won it last year for us, another Group 3 title. She could probably almost win it every year. The job she does. Coach Montana, that schedule, that keeping that team together, and he made this comment to me against STA in the semifinals of states. He said his girls had the same energy to practice that week that they did when they came in the first week of this season. So, and long season, kids start getting a little tired, lazy, and he's, and that just, credit to him that keep them focused. And he made this comment during the Kevin Williams Christmas. A player coach team is better than a coach team. And that's from his hard work from when they were freshmen that they were able to be a player coach team. So great job there.
Yeah.
Um,
Coach
Coach
Russo.
Russo,
Yeah.
yeah. Great season there with the young kids, getting them to believe and realizing how good they are. Coach Santa Pietro from Howell, always making noise, and Howell quietly becoming a fixture in the top 10 year
Yeah.
in year out. So I think that was the four that we had in the
Yep.
um finalists. So all right, we do first most improved team.
Sure.
All right,
Get this
I,
back up.
Shannon Looney was most improved player of the year, and I have to say this year was the hardest year, I think, crossing names off, because there was a lot of kids that took their game to another level this year.
I
And
don't think it was just in the most improved. I think in every category, this was the hardest year. Leaving people off all short teams and freshman team. Um, we had to do some narrowing down that we haven't had to do as much of in the past. But yeah, I mean, Shannon Looney, I think, was pretty obvious choice for most improved player. If you watched her freshman year at St. Rose and the way she grew each year, at Manasquan, getting minutes as a defensive player last year, and then taking her game to a whole new level this year. Like we said, in the state final, scoring 10 in the first 12, finishing with 19. Every game, just consistency, always there. There when he needed a big bucket. Uh, and, I think that she doubled her scoring average over the year, doubled her rebounds and assists. So I think it was a pretty obvious choice for most improved player of the year.
And what's impressive, you usually don't see the when you get the toughest defensive assignment night in night out. They're usually not one of your primary scorers, and because you're playing that hard defense for 32 minutes, it's a drain. And
Right?
the fact she did that, and she was one of their leading scorers, and offensively, some of her best games were in the biggest games. So
Yes.
she stepped up when the team needed her, and like you said, obvious choice um, for most improved player of the year. Um, we had Libby Dickman from Tom's Reese, sophomore. You want to talk about her a little bit?
100 and what she have 118 blocks this year or something like that.
Catherine.
Oh
That was
yeah, no,
Catherine.
no, sorry, yeah, yeah, no, sorry, Dickman. Again, she doubled her scoring average from 7.7 to 13.7. Um, was the leading scorer on a lot of nights, especially when Francis went down. So credit to her and her improvement. Lana Ellington, who had a great year, always there despite the injuries to her teammates. Um, what can you say about her? A lot of times, not the I mean, could be the shortest kid on the court, but worked the hardest, got a lot of rebounds, kept her team in a lot of games. Credit to her game, and she more than doubled her scoring average from 6 to 14.7 this year. Um, Allison McAndrew from Colts Neck, great second half of the season. We really weren't talking about her first half of the season. Second half of the
Oh,
season was a totally different game. 3 points a game last year at Trinity, 13 a game this year uh, at Colts Neck, 2.3 rebounds to 7.4 rebounds a game. And really, like we said in that Group 3 game against Morristown, put the team on her back. Sophie Smith from RBC, again, doubled her scoring average from 3 to 6. But it's not even the 6 points. It's in the state final, she had two big threes early that kept RBC in the game, allowed the other kids to get into the flow of game. And we saw that a bunch of times this year. Where short conference finals, she had a couple of big shots.
the
Um, Quarterfinals, yes. So,
Yep.
she stepped up in a big way this year, and kind of like the forgotten fifth person on the team of superstars, but she's a superstar in her own right. Um,
Yeah.
and then Bella Finer from Jackson, 9 points a game to 15 points a game this year. Just you could see the total transformation of her game, more confidence. She hit 1 3-pointer last year, hit 41 this year. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge improvement. Her
We were at a
shooting,
game, get 5 in a row.
yeah, exactly. So that's our most improved team. And again, we had to leave a couple kids off that deserve it, but um, these kids all earn their spot.
And I'll say a lot of these kids, not improving a skill. It's just they were given the opportunity and they grabbed it and they didn't let go and they took advantage.
Right,
And that's what it is. Most of these years, it's just kids getting the opportunity, whether it's injury, graduation, senior class, new team, maybe if you transfer. But it's really just giving the opportunity and taking advantage of it. And all these kids, out of that list, I think probably Finer was the only starter last year.
right.
Out of that list. So congratulate, or maybe Ellington too, but Ellington had a couple seniors on that team last year. But great job, and only 3 seniors, so we'll see a couple of them next year, and we see how they could, take their game to another level next year, maybe.
Yeah,
All right, let's go all defense. We talked about her a little bit earlier, and another girl who always gets the toughest assignment day in, day out, Danielle Maletsky, going to Army. I mean, I don't know what much more we could add that we didn't say beginning of the podcast
yeah.
about her, but
Listen, there's not enough good things you could say about that kid, and you can tell that she is well liked by her teammates and her coaches because of the amount of praise she gets. You bring up her name, and everybody's like, "Oh, Danny, best defensive player. The kid doesn't care about stats. She's just a team player, and that's the best thing you could say about somebody.
Yeah. Um, Brooke Gaffman, Thompson Reese, you were starting to talk about her. 118 blocks. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, what is
You know,
she's got to be close to 200 almost for since
she's
her.
o- she's over because I think she had 97 her freshman year.
Wow, I mean that's pretty
Yeah.
insane for a 2 year, you know, 2 year kid that didn't start last year, and
No.
so yeah, that's pretty impressive for kind of a true center that you don't see much
Yeah.
anymore.
I was talking to Coach Cohen a couple days ago about her, and he said it's not even the block shots; it's just what she means in the middle of the zone. And he said even when they do the full court press, they you don't really see her because she's in the back, but she plays such a vital role to their press and how much how hard she works on the defensive end. So, a lot of room to grow still. Only a sophomore, and
Right.
good pedigree there. With her father. 4 years. Player at St. Rose, varsity player.
Hmm.
Uh, Brooke Janicki, um, St. Rose transferred in right away, became their go-to defender. Opening night against Trinity Hall, she had the tough job of covering Grace Feeney, and she did a really good job, and that kind of set the tone all season for her.
Yeah, and we saw it last year at Rumson also. She drew the tough assignment on defense, and just continued this year at St. Rose, and you know can step up offensively when the team needs her also. So she comes back as a senior next year, lead that team.
Yeah, and they're going to need more out of her on the offensive end.
Yes, next year definitely.
Next, last year's defensive player of the year, probably the Energizer Bunny out of this whole, from baseline to baseline. Riley Joyce from RBR. Not the biggest kid on the court, but she don't give up.
No, she is 100% from opening tip to last whistle. She's going to give you everything she has, and
Mm.
not that she took a step back this year defensively, but I think other kids really stepped up defensively. And
100.
the record didn't help there, but she's always going to give you a tough 32 minutes.
Yeah, she's gonna make if she's guarding you, you're gonna work to get the not only get the ball, but get the ball up. So
No doubt.
uh, next, Chloe Kelly from Rumson, multi-sport athlete, lacrosse player, but she's one of the players on the list that she could guard you on the outside and she could get physical, not afraid to, use her body in the post up. So I know, you got to watch her lacrosse too. Just when she came back from the injury after missing the first round game in the Kevin Williams, Robson looked a lot more comfortable in that second game than they did, in the first game defensively.
Yeah. Not only because you're adding a top defender, but the kid can score also. So she's just a big physical kid, and she doesn't care. Another one that doesn't care about accolades, just goes out and does her job, does what the coach asks
Mhm.
her, and she's going to Ohio State for lacrosse for a reason. She's just a fantastic athlete.
Yeah. Bella Rose Marino, another player, always had the toughest assignment, whether it was guarding somebody out in the wing, somebody down low. Her long wingspan gave her a big advantage, but she held some pretty good scorers to well below their average all season.
Yeah, she's a tough kid also. That game against Lenape when she covered Joe Samuel, I mean, it was a physical battle, and she never backed down. She didn't give an inch. So, like you said, all year her length bothered people on the perimeter. She could also guard kids in the post. So, Coach Santos is going to miss her next year.
Yeah, and the last player from Colts Neck, Matty Cafaro, um, big part of their starting lineup there. Another player always gets the tough assignments too.
And not the tallest kid. It doesn't matter though. You put her against a kid 4 or 5 inches taller than you. Um, Put her on a point guard. She guards everybody the same. Physical, tough, great positioning. You can tell she's coached well. Um, and she comes back for another 2 years. So good for them.
Yeah. They're in a real good spot offensively and defensively. All right, let's transition defense. Freshman team. Sydney Tilton, freshman of the year. I thought pretty obvious choice. She did everything for that team. She was a what big offensive player, but if you look at her defensive stats too, and she really stood out in that Manchester game that they played down in Manchester. I think she had 5 steals in that game, and they were legit steals. But just an all around player, another athlete, soccer player, not back to back freshman of the year awards. I wish maybe she did lacrosse or something, but it doesn't seem like she
Yeah.
does.
I mean,
Look,
how many
look,
kids can say that? Two major sports. Her first two sports are freshman year, and she's player of the year in both sports, freshman of the year in both sports. So, um,
especially
just a
basketball.
competitor. Yeah. What's that?
Mhm. Especially in basketball, because usually
Yes.
you're just a basketball player.
Right. Right. But 3 more years with her on the soccer pitch and the basketball court. So that's going to
Yeah,
be fun to watch.
yeah, and um, Ava Coyle's sister, she had a good, second half of the season. So those two,
Mhm.
another freshman, so those two together the next couple of years, sure, could build something there.
Yep.
All right, first team, Julia Collins, Point Borough, made an impression right off, Christmas break in the Kevin Williams Christmas Classic. You know, let you talk about her.
Yeah. No. Great season. 9.7 rebounds. Um, very active on defense. A lot of block shots, key blocks. Um, fit right in with that team. Stepped right in and contributed.
Yeah, they have a good future if they could keep it going. Ella Crail, Trinity Hall, one of the best scorers this season for a freshman. Very dangerous from outside. It's going to be put in a very big role next year, but a good building block on the offensive end for Trinity Hall.
Yeah. Hit 58 3-pointers this year. So averaged over 9 points. A lot
Yeah,
coming back, but she's going to be asked a lot more is going to be asked of her next year.
yeah, averaging 9 points too with that senior heavy lineup. That's an impressive season.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, Montana Noller from Toms River North, point guard. Another player, Kevin Williams Christmas. Came on our radar. Was leading them in scoring, especially with Saluka being hurt during the Christmas tournament. Um, a lot of promise with her. Unfortunately, the Toms River dominant days, I think, are well behind them in all the sports in that school.
Yeah, changing dynamics in the town, but Noller really had a big year, and the bright spot on the team that like you said, Sarluka, but she got injured, um, and I don't know what kind of help she's going to get next year, but I mean, hopefully she can get some help and improve from year to year.
Yeah. Yeah, because she did a little bit of everything. The defense, could see the court too. Next, Michaela Rivers from Brick Memorial, um, kind of benefited from somebody transferring. I feel got put in that starting lineup. Don't know what coach would have done over there if he would have go with the senior or with her. But she had a great year. Another one that came on our radar during the Christmas tournament.
Yeah, she averaged 12 points, 2.3 steals on a team that didn't really have all that much talent or a great season team wise, but she really stepped up as a freshman.
Yeah. The last one for the first team, Mia Petrola from Southern. One of their two very good freshmen this season. Dangerous outside, could get to the basket. Well, I don't know, whatever you want. You want to add more to her, but
Yeah,
nice.
11.7 points, 3 steals, coming back with Blayhut and Sininsky. That's a pretty good uh, three-headed monster there coming back for Southern. So um, probably big things ahead for her.
Yeah. Do you feel these are? I feel I say it for soccer too. It's the Toms River crowd moving south because of the demographic change in Toms River. You
Yeah, I
see
don't know if
Central.
these kids specifically moved, but I think Southern
I'm not
Ocean
saying
County
that.
will probably benefit a lot from the changing dynamics in Tom's River. I think that's a fair statement. Yeah. Oh, looks like Nick froze again. Good.
I was
That's
getting.
fine.
I went to swipe it away, and I. All right, second team. We'll
Yeah.
just run through them real quick. Molly Hensley from Henry Hudson.
Mhm.
Great season for her, and another team, young players there because they Curry made our team last year, freshman team, so something they could build on. Frio Burrow, twin sisters Mackenzie and Madison Sims. A lot of different stats there, but if they could build something with those two, multi-sport athletes.
Mhm.
I'm gonna butcher Michaela Blahut,
Yeah. Southern. Yeah.
the Southern, the other freshman. And the last one, Lashley, who might have the most potential out of everyone, but with the senior heavy team, wasn't really given as many opportunities if she was somewhere else. But the game, she did play very good. The minutes she did get.
Yeah. Physicality, and long range projection. She probably will be the best of the freshman class. But like you said, a lot of games she got barely any minutes because of the talent at RBC. So
And the schedule,
yeah,
they play. So, and it's one of those things you expect when you go into RBC, or like we said before,
she could have started anywhere else, but yep, exactly.
So, all right, let's go all sure. You want to start? We'll start from third team, work our way up.
Yeah, and we'll just mention the third team.
Yeah.
Grace Feeney, senior from Trinity Hall, Bucknell signee. Um, you know, what can you say? She had a great career, improved every year. Bella Finer from Jackson's going to Susquehanna. We talked about her already. Gabby Flansbaum, we talked about going to Wilkes. Mackenzie Klatsky, sophomore from Marlboro, one of the top 3-point shooters in the shore. Sophie Smith from RBC going to Harvard. Can't say much more about that. And Brooklyn Bell from Lacey, who averaged close to 20 a game. She's going to TCNJ. So pretty good
Okay.
13 there.
Yeah, and Bell, another player that just improved, and didn't really have a lot of help down there.
Right. And think
So
about we think about some of the kids that didn't make the all short team. Bunch we mentioned from Manchester, maybe
yeah,
another kid or two from Colts Neck that could have made it. St. John Vianney. So yeah, there's a lot of kids that we had to leave off this list, but unfortunately, can't put you
yeah,
know
can't get
everybody
both.
on the team. So
All right, you want to read through second
yeah,
team too?
second team. Ariana Wisson from Brick Township had a big year. Sophomore Allie McAndrew, another sophomore from Colts Neck. Tessa Liggio from RBC easily could have been first team, but um, you know, but had a great year going to Bucknell. Ava Coyle, you mentioned before, going to Gettysburg. Kylie Beam, a junior from Howell, and Stella Lockhart, senior from SJV, going to Georgetown.
Okay, yeah, another couple of those. That's how good some of these players played this year. All right, first team. You want? I just let you keep rolling with it if you want.
Sure, why not? Taylor Soplakanich, SJV, Duke signee, 13 points, 5 rebounds a game, and just a big physical presence on the court for SJV. Her younger sister, who's not as tall as her, but maybe she'll grow another 5 inches like her sisters. You never know. Maddie Kosis, SJV, UPenn signee, 13.2 points, 2.4 assists, and also was given the duty of the primary ball handler at the end of the season and did a great job with it. This kid's tough as nails. She's going to shoot. She can get to the basket. She defends. UPenn's going to have a kid playing a lot of minutes um, from the jump next year. Erin Reed, we already talked about, going to Brown, another Ivy Leaguer. 16 points, 9.6 rebounds, 17 double doubles this year. I mean, that's pretty. Think about the competition she played, and to
Yeah,
come away with 17 double doubles is really
no,
impressive.
no days off for Rumson.
No, she did not take a minute off.
No.
Jordan Hollowell, who we spoke about already, Manasquan, going to American, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 2.7 steals. The kid did it all, and was the leader on that team. The unquestioned leader of that team. And Katie Liggio, RBC, Rhode Island signee. I just heard Rhode Island coach took the Florida job. So listen, she's good enough to go play at Florida if she wants to go follow her to Florida. I don't have a doubt about that. It's just whether she wants to be that far from home, maybe, or
Yeah.
But that's a
And
tough thing when you sign with a school and the coach leaves for a bigger job. You have some decisions to make, but unfortunately, I think her knee might redshirt her freshman year anyway. So, um,
might have
but
time to make yeah, with the
yeah,
knee.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll
Which is
let you talk
fair.
about the player of the year because I mean, what else can you say about Addie? But
Yeah. Has any? I mean, obviously, nobody in recent, history. In recent, I mean, the last 10, 15 years, probably. I came back in 2016, 2017. I left '05, so I had a 10-year gap where I don't. You could tell me players, I won't know who they are. But definitely since I've been back, McDonald's All American, Gatorade Player of the Year. And a big thing, and me and Coach Montana talked about this. You see some of these kids in the All American game, 25 points a game, 30 points a game. Addie, she did, I think 19.8 this year. But you're at RBC, you're not scoring 30 a game. It's a team ball, and he really appreciated her getting recognized because of that. Because she ain't up there blowing up the scoreboard like a lot of these people like to see. But I just all I got is that Rutgers prep game when they were down 11 with 4.5 left to go in the third, and she just took over. She scored
yep,
12 of the next 17 for them, and they won easily in the fourth. And then last home game ever, little scrap, little push at right before halftime, and
yeah,
she
yep,
ends her career at RBC on their court, not only setting a career high with 37 points, but she had a career high in rebounds with 16 in that game.
right.
So, truly, it was really an honor, and pleasure get to watch her grow from that freshman year, and great teammate, made everyone around them better. That team, it was a special team, and as soon as they stepped foot on that court as freshmen, everybody saw that what a special team and a special unit that group is. So yeah, I don't know what else you could add to that.
Now, you also mentioned a week or so ago we were talking. You said something. Um, do you remember what player you asked if she could be put ahead of this player, and I said you're crazy.
So I did ask Doug. The only player that I could think of, and I was only 12 when I saw her. What play is Gomez from SJV, Audrey Gomez, who she was a woman playing against little kids. It seemed like out there, and people that know she went to Southern Cal, which back then is equivalent to what UConn is now. That Southern Cal was the UConn back then. So going there meant you were the very best. I think Cheryl Miller went. Is that where Cheryl Miller went
Mm-hmm.
to?
Yep.
Yeah. Who might be labeled the best female basketball player ever, right? Cheryl Miller. So I did ask Doug after this season, towards the end of the season, is she the best that come out of the Shore Conference? And Doug said no, but
And that's no
it
slight
no, it
because
is not at
if
all.
if
If
you're
you
if you're mentioned in the same sentence with Audrey Gomez, you're doing something right. But
yes,
I can
yeah,
honestly say, you know,
yeah,
she's around my age or was around my age. Unfortunately, she was uh,
or
killed.
killed, yeah,
But
death,
you know, I never saw a better basketball player than Audrey Gomez, and I saw a lot.
yeah,
You know, when I was in high school, there were um, so many good girls basketball players in the short conference, and then when Morgan was in school, Destiny Adams, um,
mm,
Leilani Correa, all the girls from SJV and RBC, Christina Danella, probably one of the top 5 players in the shore of all time. Um, and, you know, Devin Quigley, the Shore's all time leading scorer. Um, Christy Pierce, now Christy Rampone. I mean, I was seeing a lot of players, but you know what? Addie's definitely top five, but nobody, in my opinion, it's going to take a lot to reach Audrey Gomez status.
Yeah, she was definitely a special player, and her sister was a special player as well. Um, so, but to be considered, in that, it is, and that's just how good Addie was. The fact that I had to bring that up, and I've seen, last 10 years, a lot, like you brought up a couple of them, a lot of good players.
Yeah,
So
and and it's not, like I said, that's no slight to Addie. When you're brought up in the same breath as some of those players, I mean, that's, you're talking top five, six, seven all time in the Shore Conference. That's nothing to sneeze at.
no, no, not in this area, and the deep history going back, to the early '90s. Um, I can't go back earlier than that because
I can go back a little earlier than that, but not much.
so, but yeah, it was great getting to watch her play the last 4 years. That whole team. That team is a definition of unselfishness from top to bottom. They all had one goal, and that was to win and to prove that this is the best squad. So
And that was their goal since freshman year, which is pretty
yeah,
crazy. It's not like, they turned it on sophomore, junior year. I mean, that they came in, with a bunch of fantastic players ahead of them freshman year,
yeah,
and they lived up to the hype. So
yeah. And yeah, and what Coach Montano said, each girl had their own thing. Like they were all different in like some aspect, and that's what made it, so good. So,
yep.
um, kind of want to bring up one more thing before we end this season is how could somebody run a tournament and declare a national champion? And this is no slight on SJV, but some of the best teams in the country weren't in this tournament. The best team in New Jersey wasn't in this tournament. I just don't know. I don't know who ran it. If it's an AAU person who ran it, people know my opinion of the AAU world, so I don't need to go that direction. But I don't know. Thrown, say, oh, we got the national champion here. It's just I don't know. To me, once the season's over, bring back the TOC, but you know that would be great. Unfortunately, you wouldn't have been able to see the top two teams playing the TOC because they're in the same sectional.
Same, exactly.
But yeah, that's just my last little gripe with the end of the basketball season.
Yeah, again, nothing. I mean, SJV beat who that was put in front of them. Um,
Yeah,
but to say that it's a national championship when, you know, I would say that you don't have the top 8 teams in the country playing there, or top 12 teams or 16 teams. You want to invite the top 16 teams and have them go at it, call it a national championship. But, again, it's not SJV calling themselves national champions, it's just the throne calling them national champions. And, I think that rubbed a couple of people the wrong way.
and rightfully, me and you are neutral, and I was like, what, what is this? you
Yeah,
know,
it's just, yeah. Listen, you want to call yourselves the throne champions? That's great. I mean, again, I don't know who runs it, but
yeah.
to say that's a national championship when you don't have the best teams there, that's kind of stretching it a little bit.
Listen, they did have some good teams at Long Island Lutheran, but I heard they were missing a couple of their players. They had some teams there,
And again, and
but
credit SJV. I mean, they came back in a couple of those games and
yeah,
won.
that
Matty Kostas hit that 30-foot 3-pointer to send them to
that
overtime in the
Lock,
championship.
Lockhart, Fine, and Sofa
Yes, yeah. I mean, they're a great team. We know they're a great team. Are they a national champion? Maybe to the throne people they are, but I think if not to keep using this statement, but if you're being honest, you're not really a national champion.
Yeah. So that's my only thing. But I do, a lot of people got mad when the TOC went away because New Jersey was one of the only states that, they had a clear cut number one at the end of the year
Right.
because all the champions played each other. It would be nice, nice, but then talking to somebody else, you got multiple state champions, and maybe you need to do a TOC in every state, and then you have your 50 best teams go at it.
Oh my God, could you imagine how long that season would be?
Yeah,
But
how many
you
best?
know what? Like it just amazes me because I was talking about this with my wife the other day about the TOC. As much as New Jersey NJSIAA is a money grubbing organization that bleeds every penny out of you, charging $21 to park at Rutgers, $16 to get into the game, but you're going to turn away a moneymaker like the TOC, that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah,
Bring it back.
yeah.
What is it? It's what, 3-4 extra days? Come on, like you have the venues to do it, you have the teams that want to do it, and you're going to make money. I think it's just short sighted not to have the TOC back.
And especially since there's no break in between winter and spring anyway anymore.
Right.
Like that was the
Exactly.
reason. That was supposedly the reason they
Yeah. I
wanted.
mean, I
There is
don't
no break.
know. New Jersey's just an odd state.
Yeah. So all right, that was it. My face looks very chubby on here, by the way. Let's notice that.
You got
So
to use better camera angles. See,
yeah.
I do it on.
All right. Thank you for everybody who joined us. Thank you for
Yeah,
everybody.
and thank
Great
you for
feed.
all your support all year, for the people that supported us all year, people that took their time out of their day to
Thank you.
thank us for what we do and appreciate what we do, and your support's not lost on us, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, like I said, thank you to all the players that reached out to me and Doug for acknowledging them with their postseason. Like I said, like Doug said, you guys did the hard work. We got to just sit there
We have an
and
easy job. Exactly.
yeah, we got to talk. You guys gave us something to talk about, so
Yep.
appreciate it. And we'll keep you updated with what's to come. And yeah, signing off for the 2026 basketball season.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
I take care.